Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. After the networking break, I, Ula Javed,
And I, Parag Shukla,
welcome you back to Communique 14, 4th International Telecom Seminar. Before we move on, we would like to thank our sponsors, partners, and supporting organizations for their constant support. Corporate gift sponsor, Sterlite Technologies Limited. Delegate kit sponsor, Protinus Technologies LLP. Webcast partner, Epitome Solutions.
Hospitality partner, Holiday Inn. Digital media partner, M2M Paper and Voice and Data. Radio partner, Radio City 91.1 FM.
Supporting organizations, Asia Cloud Computing Association, Cerebral Business Research, Device Management Forum, IoT Insights, ITU APT, WiMAX Forum, DECT Forum, Broadband India Forum, Acto, Telecom Watch, Cable Quest Broadband, TUG, Voice and Data.
Technologies and human lives are all about evolution. At many points in the history of mankind, both have come together and have themselves been the reasons for evolution. As the ICT industry continues to evolve, the business world is applying it even more broadly and across various applications. Critical to this is the development of mobile communications technology. The latest technology, 4G LTE, provides considerable improvement over the previous network technologies. With the ever-increasing drop in ARPU, especially with reference to voice services, telecom operators are focusing all their effort on enhancing data services. Existing data rates made available to the users are unable to satisfy the continually growing demand of high-speed internet. 4G and LTE in the current scenario are the most advanced technologies known to deliver a speed of up to 100 megabits per second given an ideal environment. While 2G has reached its saturation and aspects like speed, video calling, and superior access to content notwithstanding, major portion of the market has still not adopted the 3G technology. Despite this, telcos are all set to launch the advanced 4G platform. This calls for a rigorous scrutiny of the market situation and the gaps thereof. It is in this spirit that we would like to introduce the topic of our next panel discussion: Beyond Technology Horizons, Embracing Customer Apprehensions for 4G.
To channelize and moderate the discussion, I would like to call on stage the moderator, Dr. Mahesh Uppal, owner ComFirst. Dr. Mahesh Uppal is the director of ComFirst India, a niche consultancy company based in Delhi that specializes in policy, regulation, and strategy. He obtained a PhD in chemistry from IIT Kanpur and later an MA in communication policy studies from City University, London. He has carried out academic research in several major universities in India and United Kingdom, including Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Sussex, and Cambridge University. Sir has been actively involved in the sector since the formative years of regulation and competition. He contributed extensively to setting up of India's regulatory body for telecommunications. Sir frequently advises major national and global corporations, industry associations, international development agencies, as well as civil society organizations. He has also been a resource for trade unions and political parties. Sir, SITM feels privileged to have you at Communique 14.
Our next esteemed panelist is Mr. Niladri Datta, Customer Principal Consultant, Ericsson UAE. Sir is an alumnus of SITM and is a graduate in Electronics Engineering from the University of Nagpur. Sir is a seasoned industry professional with a decade of global consulting experience. His key focus includes business and operations transformation consulting for top-tier telecommunication operators. Sir has executed more than 30-plus consulting engagements over the past decade in varied markets across Western and Central Europe, Middle East, North and Central Africa, Asia Pacific, India, and New Zealand. His expertise is primarily around business and operational process management, IT operational strategy, enterprise architecture, and revenue management consulting. In his present role with Ericsson, he works for the region Middle East and Africa, RMEA, as a customer principal for Ericsson's regional consulting practice. Sir is bestowed with the responsibility of driving and delivering various forms of consulting engagements, right from pre-sales, concept realization, business case preparation, proposal presentation, to engagement delivery. Prior to joining Ericsson, Sir has worked for companies like IBM, PwC, Siemens, and Tech Mahindra. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14.
Now, I would like to call on stage Mr. Prashant Nazari, Head Sales and Marketing, India SEA and SAARC, Sterlite Technologies Limited. Sir is an engineering graduate from Mumbai and has done his master's in business administration and also master's in international trade from Narsee Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. With more than 17 years of experience, Sir has worked with Mukan Steel, Acme Telepower, American Towers, and is now working with Sterlite Technologies Limited as Head of Sales and Marketing, Telecom Products, India, Southeast Asia, and SAARC regions. Sir has actually seen and was part of the growth of over 500% in just 3 years for past 3 companies he has worked with. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14.
Our next esteemed panelist is Mr. Madhukant Patel, Managing Director, Rave Automation. Sir is a seasoned professional with over 3 decades rich experience in areas like designing electronics, communications and firmware-based product development, project management, strategy planning, team management and corporate training with well-known organizations in electronics, communication, instrumentation, automation, robotics, etc. Sir has an expertise in executing projects from concept to launch with focus on project scope and rendering end-to-end solutions. He possesses sound product knowledge and thorough understanding of design and development of high reliability system for industries, broadcast, defense communications, and industrial automation with abilities in optimizing product performance and efficiencies. Sir has successfully worked on design and realization of projects with ISRO, DRDO, and other government organizations. Sir has also managed projects with MNCs with ISO 9001 and CMMI processes. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14.
I would now like to call on stage Mr. Ashutosh Sharma, Head of Shared Service Operations India, BT Global Services. Sir runs the Technical Management Shared Service Operation for British Telecom in India, managing the service assurance activities for BT's global enterprise customer services. He has been with BT for over 6 years, handling close to 200+ people in 24/7 technical support activities, and is also the key contributor for BT India growth strategy for the last few years. Before joining BT, Sir worked for Orange France Telecom as service manager for voice services, and prior to that was working with SITA in India and Canada. SITA, Society for International Telecommunications and Aeronautics, is a global telecom service provider dedicated for the airlines industry. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14.
It gives me immense pleasure to call on stage Mr. Neerav Thakkar, Enterprise Telecom Sales Head, Airtel. Mr. Neerav Thakkar holds a master's degree from NMIMS and a diploma in telecom from IIT Delhi. He has an experience in telecom and ICT domain with exposure to various verticals. He has worked in multiple assignments with Bharti Airtel, Reliance Infocom, and Allied Digital Services. Sir has been associated with Mumbai enterprise business market since many years and has exposure to various telecom technologies. He has been instrumental in launching wireless POS terminals in India during 2005 and 6. His special achievements include an award from Mr. Mukesh Ambani for penetrating CDMA growth in enterprise. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14.
Our final esteemed panelist is Mr. Anish Sharma, General Manager, ZTE. Sir is a telecom engineer with a master's degree from University of York, UK. He's working in the field of pre-sales of fixed networks with a total experience of almost 9 years. His interest lies in the field of convergence of technologies and last-mile connectivity, be it fiber or copper. His core strength lies in the understanding of communication technology as a pure communication technocrat and has a bent for sales. His major specialities include technologies like XPON, NGN, PSTN migration, and FMC. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14. I would now request our moderator to please preside over the discussion.
Good afternoon, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this very warm welcome. It's a great pleasure and a privilege to be amongst you and to see a wonderful institute, the campus, and everything else. And I do hope we will have a session about a subject that you'll be probably very interested in and curious about. And certainly 4G, and I hope it'll be productive and exciting and whatever. Now, 4G is probably one of our new buzzwords. Everyone seems to know about it, everyone's talking about it. And many have huge hopes from it, and many certainly have some skepticism, some concerns, etc. But what can't be ignored, or what is there before us, are 2 or 3 very important facts. One, that 4G is a technology that offers you much higher bandwidths than 3G does, and probably some of the highest bandwidths available currently, which will make it possible to access and consume a whole range of content, particularly multimedia. The second thing that is a reality, and a very, very important business reality, is that India's operators, we have a couple here on the panel and elsewhere, have spent close to 30,000–40,000 crores on acquiring spectrum for 4G. Now, and what we do have also is a situation where very few amongst us have used or experienced 4G services. So clearly, we need to understand what is it that attracts so many people to this business, and why we should be looking forward to it, and what we can expect in the coming days. Now, what is also clear is that the 4G services, that the spectrum for these 4G services was, as you know, allocated in 2010. And not only was it allocated in 2010, which is roughly 4 years ago, it was fully paid for by the operators at that time. So there is a huge investment in the 4G spectrum that's already. So it is not just a concern for you and me that the services haven't taken off. I suspect it is an equally serious concern for the operators, that they have an investment which really hasn't been monetized to any significant extent. And so clearly there is a problem, and the services are yet to be seen, and there are, which then reflects that there are clearly some, forgive me, that there are some barriers to the adoption of 4G, that there are problems that are coming in the way of 4G rollout and 4G adoption. And what might those be? And this discussion will talk about many of those things, but let me just try and give you a picture. One is clearly that the services are not yet available in most parts of India, so availability per se of 4G services is an issue. The second, of course, issue is that we still do not know how expensive or how cheap these services will be, and most likely they will not be at the level of 2G services, so maybe price could also be an issue at some point. Clearly there is an issue about choice. Most of us know that 4G services are still relatively nascent, and there is a much smaller number of handheld devices, the user devices, which customers can use. In other words, there is a very limited choice of handsets. And compare this with the few hundred handsets that you have to choose between, or you can choose between when you're acquiring, let's say, a 2G or a 3G service. So clearly there is an issue about the number of devices available. Then there is an issue about their convenience, how convenient they are to use. I mean, most of us have handsets which probably weigh about 150 to 200 grams at best. Now, it's not clear whether we could get or expect those kinds of devices at prices that you and I would be willing to pay. And more so in India, where the market is very price sensitive, the affordability is low, we would want those handsets to be affordable. So it's not simply a question of the existence of those devices. We all know many exist, but also that they must be affordable. And so clearly there are issues at that end. Then there is obviously the issue about what you will do with a 4G handset that you currently find you can't with a 3G or a 2G handset. So there is an issue about the actual services that you want to access or what you currently can't access and would be able to access. So in other words, the functionality that 4G will offer is also a concern. So many, sorry about this. So then there is, of course, the issue of capacity itself. Is, for example, the kind of bandwidth that we will achieve through 4G, is it too much or too little? If you are a very, very average vanilla kind of a user, 4G bandwidths look quite a lot. But if, as some of us were talking about just before this, this panel discussion, if you really want a seamless, you want to be able to watch a movie, for instance, seamlessly in your car, then even the current speeds may not guarantee you that. Maybe you will still see some jerks, some blips, some breaks. So the issue then is 4G too much or too little? So there are many such concerns that we have to deal with and worry about. And but I think it might be useful. This is a panel discussion, not a speech by me, and I'll stop making. I'll now move to the panelists to discuss some of these issues in greater detail. And I think what I'm going to do is to ask our friend from Sterlite, Mr. Prashant Nazare, and I have specifically interested in his views on this, about why, if at all, why do we need 4G? But why am I interested in his views? Particularly because he comes from a business which actually is not a wireless business. He is a fiber optics expert. His company is one of the country's leaders in fiber optics. And they have a unique perspective on why it is that we should worry about 4G, why 4G is important for us. So, Prashant.
Thanks, Uppal. Good morning. Few of people in the left are dozing, so just wake up. I like the theme which is written on the left. World is watching. What is there? And what interested me was a question mark. Mm-hmm. Do we believe what we are doing and where we will be in the 4G? Do you guys believe? Because it is you who will be doing it exactly in the coming years, from 2G to the 3G to the 4G. We have seen all these arenas in last 17, 18 years, in my experience, coming from 256 kbps to 1 Mbps to 4 Mbps to 100 Mbps, what we are talking for a 4G data. So what Mr. Uppal, he mentioned, why 4G? What are we talking about 4G? Do really the people are worried about what is there in the 4G? you and me are worried about. Yes, tomorrow the equipment is out, definitely we'll go for it. We are the smart guys. We use the smart equipments. But do the people in the world, not in the world, in India, are they going to use the 4G? The 3G buzz which started, operators started rolling out the 3G, and what was expected, it didn't happen. And now in today's data, you only presented fantastic data, it is picking up. So what will happen to 2G? Where will 3G and 4G, will they go together? Will 3G pick up or will 4G pick up? All the operators, telcos, they are watching. So do we really need 3G? Or do we really need a 4G? A 3G is something, what you need? WhatsApp, email, Gmail, sending photographs, selfies. Do that need a 4G? No. 4G is something bigger, much, much bigger. It talks about data. It talks about the speed. What speed and what data are we going to transfer? You agree with me? So today, that's what he has asked. Are we all content with what we have today? And do really the operators are also thinking, will 4G? Today, globally also, if you see the scenario, 300 LTE networks have been rolled out. Almost 100 countries, the 4G network is there. But are they doing good? So here I will just say, this 4G, definitely for you and me, it is going to be boom. I'm quite bullish about telecom for last couple of years, 10 years. I have seen those hypes in 2005, 2006, when 2G rollout went up. It went down completely. We have big problems in the telecom, and now again it is picking up. And he said from the fiber perspective, today in India, we have almost 11 lakh kilometers laid underground fiber. But if you really want to go for a 4G, it is 3 to 4 times more. So what India has done in last 15 years, they have to do it in next 1 or 2 years.
Wow. Thanks, Prashant. And I think that puts in perspective what the kind of challenges we are facing. Yes, I don't think no amount of bandwidth is ever enough in this business. We all know that. And I think what Prashant has also told us is how important the 4G piece is also to the overall bandwidth consumption scenario. Unless you have 4G at the user end, unless the user end bandwidth is matched and supported by the fiber optic network behind, or in other words, the back end, we will not have a seamless connectivity. But I think what we also want to know is what is it, or what is it that operators like Airtel, for instance, see in 4G? What is it that made them shell out that kind of money? And are they thrilled about it, or are they regretting it, or what? How do you perceive the 4G?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the Institute, and congratulations to all of you all. The seminar and the forum has really been really nice. Really impressing and really very good. I mean, we were some of the panelists. Let me tell you before I give my opinions. We were just discussing. This looks like a seminar which is there on Aaj Tak or NDTV, the way it's organized. So really, congratulations. So coming to, I totally agree with the point. There are challenges definitely in 4G. Okay. The expectations of the 4G from a user is also very much different than what. From 3G to 2G. First of all, how many of the people over here in the audience have used 4G services since it's already there in Pura? Can raise their hands. Good. Very, very couple of them. Okay. Absolutely, we are the right forum. Okay. The 4G network deployment, as we rightly said, is much different from than what 3G and 2G is required. The radius of 4G is much lower to provide a network connectivity. The expectations of the 4G is much more premium. The amount of investment that is gone is very high. 4G, by the time the ROI comes and the mass base increases, it is important to understand that 4G would have a limited forum. It would be rather required to connect a particular area, but not as good as to connect the entire city. So user experience would be much different. He would get an amazing speed of around 40-45 MB. If on a particular at his house or his offices, if the 4G connectivity is there. But probably when he is traveling to a city, he may not have the same kind of experience. So from a telecom perspective, to connect the entire city on a 4G is a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. And coming from the enterprise segments also have a much more expectations than the retail segments based on, there are a lot of good examples that Mr. Ravi gave in the last forum about, about the medical science and all that. I would just add one more example where you have your refrigerator, okay, and you inform your refrigerator how much milk you need, how much of juice, quantity of juice you need. All those ingredients are defined by you. Your refrigerator is a Bluetooth refrigerator, and your mobile app talks in a Bluetooth with your refrigerator. From that app connectivity, it goes to the grocery store that you need X number of quantum of your milk or your juice. The minute it reaches at a certain level, the automated messages goes to the grocery store and he delivers it. So you don't need to, the payment is also auto, the entire system is auto. So while if we want to reach that kind of world, maybe in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years down the line, 4G needs to be there everywhere. But as of now, yes, the challenges continue. And I believe there are new telecoms who have been investing in it, and within the next 2015 mid or end, there is more 4G services supposed to be rolled out, whether it's Airtel or whether it's any operator. But I'm sure there is much more to come to 4G, and we'll see a lot of good things happening.
Great, thank you. Maybe Anish, I can come to you. You're a telecom technology player, a vendor. Anish is from ZTE. And tell us what you see is the state of 4G networks and how far away are we from using the kind of services that Nirav was talking about.
Thank you, Upal, and congratulations SITM on such a great event and giving me an opportunity to speak. We've been talking about 4G. 4G is not about what we are going to do with the pipe. It is about how fast we can do what we are doing today. So yes, you're sending a picture on the WhatsApp, you're going to do something similar on 4G, but how faster we can do that. Today it takes maybe a couple of minutes, it may happen in a couple of seconds. So it is not about a new content which is going to come in from somewhere and then 4G is going to be more applicable. It is about the same content and the same activity, but how faster. There have been questions as in, as a technology, 4G can be implemented only in pockets. Yes, that is true. But as a technology, there is no limitation. I would like to give this comfort to Airtel as a technology partner of 4G. We can roll it out everywhere. The only issue is on the basic formulae, which I remember from my college days, lambda is 1 by f. The moment you have lambda is 1 by f, that is where the problem is. The investments which are going to be there to roll out the 4G services for the complete city are going to be humongous. That's where we are faltering. But yes, how relevant it is as a country in India to have 4G services. Have we actually utilized the 3G completely? That's the question which we ask every time. Have we moved from voice to data? Have we really done that? How much movement has happened? We're still on the voice. How many people of you here are actually doing, are hooked on to your smartphones? Can I have hands? How many are really hooked on to smartphones? I would say still a long way to go. Another 50%, I need them to make 4G more reliable or more realizable, I would say. It is not that 4G users are going to come from the stars or sky or anything. It's us. We have to make 4G successful. It's not going to be Airtel. It's not going to be Vodafone. It's not going to be ZTE or Ericsson's. It's going to be the subscriber. It is the subscribers which will make it more of a reality. From the technology perspective, yes, the ecosystem is there. There are handsets available. There are networks available. Voice over LTE was a big issue some time back, but now VoLTE is possible. All of these things are possible on 4G. ZTE as a player is committed to 4G. We have rolled out certain 4G networks with Airtel as well, if I'm allowed to say that. And yes, it is not, again, I would like to reiterate, it is not the content. Yes, how fast we can access that content is 4G. So 4G is not a new solution. It is just a solution which is going to make your life a little more easier by increasing the speeds at which you're doing things. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anish, for pointing this out, because in this business, which is all about acronyms and buzzwords, it is useful to recall that really what we are talking about is faster traffic, we're talking about wider roads, we're talking about doing much the same things, but doing them more efficiently with larger bandwidths. There's not more than that. But what Anish and both Anish and Nirav have talked about is the Indian situation, the kind of market development that they foresee and what is required. But there are markets where 4G is alive and thriving and kicking and all the rest and doing good business. And Niladri on my right is coming from one of those markets in the Middle East where there is several 4G networks which are actually doing rather well. And maybe he can tell us what exactly is the difference between where India and where India is and where the Middle East is, particularly the countries that you're familiar with. And also, what does it take to deliver a 4G experience? What all is involved? Yes, you have an operator who has access to the spectrum, who's running the brand, who's running the business, but it takes a lot more than that. And I think Niladri is going to just tell us all that.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yeah. It's great to be back on campus after a decade. So congratulations on the event once again. As I'm asked to speak about a little bit of context on the global market, I am based out of Dubai, so 4G in UAE is actually a reality. We have two major players in Dubai, in UAE, which is essentially the Etisalat, which is the parent company, and Dubai Telecommunications, which is popularly known as DO. Both of them are using LTE or 4G networks. They have a plethora of services that are being rolled out every month over a 4G network. And yes, the culture there is, you have quality at your doorstep if you pay a premium. So if you're ready to pay a premium, yes, the service is there. The acceptance of 4G is also very much there, and it's pretty much prevalent in that market. It's also a reality in markets like US. It's also a reality in markets like Japan, Taiwan, and Singapore, and so on. So 4G it's a technology here to stay. It's here to deliver more and more content and data at high-speed bandwidth, as the panelists spoke. The real challenge of delivering 4G is customer experience and quality of service. And I think when I speak to operators who are my customers globally, I operate out of the Middle East and North Africa predominantly. So even they are upgrading their networks to 4G, or some have already upgraded. The biggest challenge that they have is in terms of quality of service and in terms of customer experience management. Yes, you have technology to deliver value-added services. Yes, you have services that are being considered as value-added services. Like, for example, the online world has changed our lives, and a lot of discussions has already happened in the morning around that. Education system has changed across developed countries, and I was just having a discussion with the fellow panelists here. Like, my son, he goes to school, he submits his homework online, he logs into live demos, he reads parts of a plant. Now, if I have to read parts of a plant, when I was his age, I used to do it by reading a book. He doesn't read it by reading a book. He goes to the portal, see the live demo of a plant being nurtured into a tree, blah, 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 and he sees that. All that is done based on the infrastructure that is behind those kind of video graphics that you see. And predominantly, they are driven by LTE or 4G networks. In terms of customer experience, I think the biggest challenge that we have, and in Ericsson, we do deliver projects around customer experience management across the globe. The biggest challenge that we face is in terms of integration between the process and the systems. And that is predominantly a challenging task because of newer business models. The operators of the world like Bharti Airtel, Reliance, Vodafone, AT&T, Etisalat, they come up with newer business models. They expect services to be delivered at faster speed for revenue generation. But the real challenge is to integrate the process and the technology layer seamlessly and to integrate the back-end OSS, BSS setup. That's going to be the next technological transformation driver for years to come. That's going to take a bit of a while. So yes, 4G is a reality, but quality of service is an issue. Customer experience is an issue. And I'm sure you know this, that most of the customer experience is around billing disputes. So yes, you're talking about great services, you're talking about revenue generation, but what about revenue realization from that 4G? Operators are impatient. And I was recently reading an article from McKinsey. I mean, they were citing that almost more than 50% of the operators who have invested in 4G across the globe are not getting ROI. That's predominantly because they are not able to integrate the OSS BSS stack seamlessly. And that's why the customer experience is suffering, and you have more than 75% billing disputes happening.
Thank you, Niladri. And I think another very interesting case in 4G is actually from an entirely different direction, and that is Great Britain. BT, from which Ashutosh, the gentleman on my right, comes, is a company which we all know very well, one of the incumbents in the UK, which has consciously been a fixed line operator. It has owns most of the backbone, it owns most of the fixed broadband subscriptions, etc., etc. But interestingly, after having kept out of the wireless business for so long, it has now decided it's time to enter the 4G market. How does BT see the 4G market? Why does it think that it'll make money when a large number of operators, even internationally, as Niladri is saying, are still struggling with ROI, with returns on investment? So, Ashutosh.
Thanks, Mahesh. So, as Mahesh said, BT is predominantly a landline or a fixed line provider, one of the biggest service providers you will see in the world, and obviously the largest in the UK. So for BT, it has been a conscious decision that they did not want to go into 2G or 3G in the UK because the market was very saturated. So my colleagues come from Dubai and from other Middle East countries where the population base is not that huge. I mean, the UK is the size of one big state of India, and the population is 1/100th of what we have here. But they have been very successful in the rollout of the services. I think for countries like UK and US, it's about putting horse before the cart, in that if the underlying infrastructure is there, you're getting the guaranteed quality of service for which you are paying, then there is no dearth of the consumers. And as Niladri said, the quality of service is extremely important for any customer. So why should I pay for 4G when I can get maybe 80% of that service in half the cost? So for BT, it was a conscious decision. They did not want to do it. So what they did was, last 3 or 4 years, they pumped in nearly £1 billion worth of investment in the UK fiber optic market to make sure that at least 80 to 90% of the households in the UK were covered by fiber, which is essentially your underlying infrastructure to deliver 4G services. And once they achieved that, they made sure that they monetize or they capitalize on that investment. So some of you may or may not agree with the fact that it was a conscious decision, but in a way I think the realization came to them that why not use it other than providing the BT Vision or Infinity, which is a pay TV service. So why not use it for 4G and sell it as a brand? So there are large enterprise customers in the UK for which we are actually selling 4G services to their employees as a business packs, to use. So I think if it is to work in India, and I'll probably borrow a quote, that I will not buy a Mercedes which will drive at 20 km/h on a congested Indian road till the time somebody guarantees me that you will get a freeway. So for BT, the success has been that there has been that freeway for the consumer to allow that experience.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashutosh. In fact, to paraphrase what you just said about the Mercedes, I mean, it is frequently said that 4G is a solution in search of a problem. Okay? That it is actually an answer which is seeking a question, because clearly there are many people whose concerns are very much the same. Have money, will buy a Mercedes, but tell me how will you ensure that I can get best value for my Mercedes? And there are many other technical issues too. And I think bringing those technical issues from an entirely different perspective is Mr. Madhukant Patel, who actually comes from a satellite background. And and also has a very long history of involvement in satellite wireless communications in India, and I think has his own insight into how the 4G market will play out. What are the kind of concerns that he feels we may be overlooking, or opportunities that we might be missing?
Namaskar. I may look like a little odd person in the forum where I am from purely scientific background, while my friends, they are purely in service provider or money market. I'll try to...
So younger people only have better light.
Yeah, true. Yes. So I used to come to Symbiosis before a decade for teaching one subject called telecom convergence. I evolved the syllabus, I taught the subject, and I evaluated the subject. So all things were done by me for a couple of years. Then I went to Ahmedabad, and I'm missing Symbiosis. So thank you very much for, again, getting back me to this crowd. In a decade, I see a big change in terms of the quality of everything what I have seen from Shivaji Nagar to this place. I think Symbiosis has done marvelous job, and I hope that it will continue and set a landmark for the future. While all world is rushing towards the smart cities, smart villages, everything to be smart, I believe in terms of technology, there has to be millions and millions of sensors to be connected everywhere for the governance. And all those sensors will be, of course, wireless, and those wireless will require a very reliable and very speedy network. And I think 4G, we have no choice but to have a better network. So I see a very great future of 4G and a necessity viewpoint. In terms of technology, if we see, like this mobile phone, it has a tremendous power in terms of silicon, in terms of handling software, algorithm, logics, but we utilize hardly 2% of the power of the silicon. So if we have to worry about the utilization part, so I see things like the content for this device and content for the network. If you have big network and no content to flow, I think it will not be viable. So we need to make sure that there is a content which will drive the devices like this, and it need to be delivered. So delivery, then the security of the data, and reliability. Like I will give an example of ISRO, when ISRO started telemedicine programs, e-medicine programs. The biggest challenge was the security of the data. What people had a concern that the patient and doctor has a different relationship. So in private, they expose everything. But when it comes to the network, the patient is not sure of what about their data. So those will be always a concern for an end user to use the power of technology and the power of network. So while we are talking of data safety, not only data corruption or storage issues, but more like winning the confidence of the people who are putting their money or their personal data or the private information on the cloud. So those will be, again, the big challenges. Like another aspect, if we see, like generally we talk of people talking to people, or people communicating, transferring data to the network. But if I see from other view angle, it's more like a machine will talk to the network, and those machines and maybe the sensors, it will occupy very heavy bandwidth and data pipelines. So that will add another flavor. For example, very soon we will see that desktops will be vanishing. When I joined ISRO, there was no personal computers, only mainframes, and then you have slide rules. In between, you don't have anything. So now, when personal computers came, we were jumping. Yes, now we have a very personal device where we can do a lot of processing on that. But very soon, those will vanish. We will not be seeing any laptops and personal computers. So the intelligence and storage will go to the cloud, and we'll be living with the smart devices. So in between, the things will vanish, and that will demand the bandwidth. So without bandwidth, those things will not be possible. Like when LAN, when Wi-Fi, WiMAX came, we were very happy. But very soon, the scene will change. For example, getting a local network through a traditional LAN will not have all those flexibility where we can set a LAN with a mobile device or a smart device. We'll take example of like a place like Kerala, where the villages are distributed into 2-3 houses in a field. They are not a concentrated villages. Now you want to set a LAN connectivity among those houses. I think 4G may be the only option. There is no other option where we can cluster those isolated places without a very quick and data-centric network. So I see from technology viewpoint that those things will be very much necessity where we connect the machines, man, the information, and decision-making events through the network. So I see a great future and a great necessity of 4G kind of technology. Thanks. So we'll continue more on that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Patel. And I think you've raised 2 or 3 very, very important points. One of them is obviously the whole issue of content, because eventually these networks will need content and they'll be driven by content. But content, as Mr. Patel also spoke about, is about not just the type of content, the quantity of content, but also issues relating to trust. Who will move what kind of content in a network, the issues relating to security, issues relating to privacy, all those issues are integral to this business. And another point that Mr. Patel alluded to, which is something that I personally think is very critical, and I certainly repeat it very frequently, which is that unlike most countries in the world, in fact, I don't know of any country which has a bigger stake in wireless communications than India. And this is something that is often missed, because unlike most countries in the world, in fact, I had the good fortune of being in the UK and being a customer of BT when it was a monopoly in the late 70s and 80s, early 80s. And even then, in 1980, there was nationwide fixed line coverage, okay? And we, in 2014, do not even have a fraction of that coverage. India has virtually no serious fixed line network. So for India, the only option actually is wireless. And that is why 95% of our subscribers, in fact, actually slightly more of our subscribers are wireless. More than roughly the same amount of traffic is again wireless. So if we want to provide broadband, we really do not have, in the short term, any serious option other than wireless. But as Prashant mentioned, having wireless at the user end is not enough, because eventually if there is serious wireless at the user end, that wireless also has, that data traffic also needs to be carried. So you do need a fixed line network, you do need a fiber network. And so both these things will go together. But the last mile is going to be wireless in India, which the vast, vast majority of countries, especially Western economies, do not have to worry about. So this is something which makes India unique. Wireless is as much an opportunity as a responsibility for us to ensure that it becomes a viable business, to ensure that we are filling the ecosystem that Anish also spoke about, that whatever are the barriers in the system, what are the kind of gaps in this ecosystem we need to fill. And I think, again, we come back to our operators, the Indian operators, and all our panelists, I'm going to come back to them, and ask them, what is it that we need to do to make 4G successful in India? What is it that will make 4G tick or click in India? Starting again with Airtel, Nirav.
Absolutely. So one is that you rightly said that fixed line services in other countries are much advanced than India. Fortunately, unfortunately, private operators entered India fixed line space much late. If you see the statistics, fixed line revenue for operators has been reducing, and only mobility voice has been increasing, and now it's only what is growing is mobility data. So definitely at the rate what the mobility data is increasing, there's no doubt about it that 4G, I personally believe that it's going to be there. How much time is still a question. Coming back to your question is how do we make 4G more viable, going ahead. In the last forum, it's also said that if you see your calculators, your camera phones has been replaced with mobile phones. Your postcard has been replaced with mobile phones. There is one important thing that most of the people in the Indian household which has not replaced mobile phones, is the television. The television sets are going to replace mobile phones, in future to come. The 4G content also which you spoke about, okay, the 4G can provide you a seamless television network whether you are on a move or whether you are at home most of the time. So that is the difference which, which I foresee that is going to come, and how much time it will take. So it all depends upon how much users are able to make this successful live. I'm sure that in urban cities, first the successful is definitely going to come for 4G, and then probably it would go to B and C town kind of cities. But the telecom operators, there are some telecom operators who are investing huge. So from a telecom operator, there are two ways of launching a service. One is you invest the money and then wait for the subscribers. And one is parallelly that whether, depending upon the pockets you invest, you get subscribers and then you invest parallelly. So there are two ways depending upon the ROI and which investor or not. But in whichever path you go, the achievement is going to come, and I personally feel 4G is definitely going to be viable. And I'm sure with the increased kind of the base, the rates are also going to come down. At the rate when there was 16 rupees call per minute, people were not using as much as mobile handsets. And from 16 to 8 to 4 and 2 and below 1 rupee now, most of the people, we start using all mobiles with all rural penetration. Same thing happened to the internet services also. And same thing, I think, phenomenon will happen to 4G services also. So okay. I'll give one more example. I'm sure most of you all, everybody all uses Facebook, and you all tag your friends and relatives in the Facebook. Next time you upload a photograph, the Facebook already suggests the name of the person who's already tagged in, right? Okay. So I don't know whether most of you people heard about it or not. There is something called Facebook Glaze. Has anybody heard about it? So that means Facebook actually stores the data of that person. He captures the eyes, and suggests that this is your friend, who has already been tagged. So in the Facebook servers, the data is stored that these kinds of, the particular eye belongs to Mr. say Rohit Sharma, just to example. If you have a Facebook Glaze which is connected on a 3G or probably on a 4G network Glaze, when you walk to a restaurant and with those Glaze, it connects to the Facebook server and identifies the person in the restaurant who is sitting. So you can just go and just walk across it. Life in your college can change, and maybe when you are entering the first time in the college of the first year, and things can change where you already know a lot of people. Things can go that fast. So so things, a lot of world to come, and I'm sure 4G will be much viable.
Sure.
Thank you.
But let me try and bring this more to the viability or the economics of the 4G business. And Anish, maybe in one or two lines, we're now running out of time, and we have the most important part of this PD left, which is user participation. So in one or two lines, tell me what is it that would improve the economics of providing 4G services? And that's a question that all my panel can start preparing. Yeah. And because that is the question we want. And again, we're talking India specific. Is there something that needs to happen at the technology end, the market end, regulation end, where? What is it that will make the business viable? Thank you.
See, we as OEMs, we think about it, how to monetize 4G and make the ROI happen a little faster. ROI happens a little faster, operators have more money to invest, increase the infrastructure, we get the services. So yes, there's a lot of talk on monetizing the pipe. That was what some solutions are happening, wherein you are billing the customer as per the content. So for example, if I'm using Skype minutes on the internet, I may be charged differently, whereas when I'm using it for normal internet browsing, I may be charged differently. So this would enable the operators to basically charge the subscriber based on the content. Number two, LTE, predominantly we're talking about 100 megs per SIM card, for instance. 100 megs is not something which is going to be utilized by one person at one point in time. You may be using a Wi-Fi device wherein one uplink on the LTE may be giving connection to 10 people on the Wi-Fi. Today, the billing systems do not allow you to bill those 10 people separately. We may be able to, if the billing systems are changed, the IN systems are changed, we will be able to bill these subscribers as a separate entity. So instead of billing a particular SIM card or a particular subscriber, you would be able to bill 10 people behind that SIM card being connected on a Wi-Fi, making it more viable for the end user as well. So these ways we can monetize for the operators, wherein they can see that the ROIs are happening and making it more realistic. Because 100 meg, charging a subscriber on 100 meg or something, it's about how to bill, how to get more money out of the services which are being given.
Sure.
So yes, it is a premium service, but premium service being given to a subscriber as a normal service and billing it in a way that the ARPUs are higher for the operator.
Okay.
I would just like to end with a small thing which I heard, which I captured. Today, we were talking about mainframes, we were talking about a lot of old platforms. There's a saying which goes like this, that the power of mobile phones that we have in our hands today was used by NASA to send a man to the moon. What are we doing with it? Probably playing Angry Birds.
Very good point.
Thank you.
Very good point. Yeah. Well said, well said. Absolutely. And so clearly there's a whole issue of what we are doing with capacity that's already there. But Ashutosh, what do we have to learn from countries like UK, or for that matter, the more higher income countries in our 4G growth?
Yeah. I think obviously
again, two lines.
The infrastructure, the investment, I think with the change in the government and all the issues we have seen in the background in the regulatory space, it will be helpful if we have a very clear, transparent regulatory process. It's a very delicate balance between the amount of money these guys pump in versus the amount of money you want to shell out to buy that service. So that balance needs to be met. And just taking a very small example from the panelists before us, if the 4G can help that farmer sell his goat at the same price or at a better price using 4G, in Indian context, I think that's the success of 4G, or for that matter, any technology. As long as we are price sensitive, we are clear about the objectives of the technology, then I think that's what we need to make it successful.
Absolutely. I think it's a very good point, and you also referred to a very important point which didn't get covered very much, which is that one of the chief components of, if you like, reducing the cost of 4G or making it more viable is actually regulation. And for instance, the huge proportion of operator costs that go simply into spectrum is actually a very, very important element of how fast people can get a decent ROI. In fact, very few countries which are our peers are having such great difficulties in allocating spectrum. It's of course to do with our market structure. We have too many operators. We have limited spectrum. We don't release all spectrum. There's a lot of idle spectrum, for example, with defense forces, which is not in the public domain. And so there are a whole lot of other issues which are intimately related to the business, and which will also, if handled by, let's say, regulators or government, the point that you made, Ashutosh, could actually impact the viability of this business, in fact, make it more viable. And, but let me now come to Mr. Patel. Again, the same question in one or two lines. can you tell us what is it that you would do to make 4G more viable?
Again,
or what anybody should
yeah,
do,
sure,
maybe
sure,
not you.
Yeah. Again, coming to the technology utilization, for example, we had a disaster in Kashmir recently, and most of the telecom towers were not working. Now, technically, if we had the right application for that, all these cell phones, they are basically small towers. If we have right application, they can talk to each other and they can form a network. But we couldn't do. So that's what I'm telling, that there's a big technology gap in terms of utilization of the power available. Okay. So if you have right skill developed, those technologies can be harnessed and we can use much better way. So those things will make the whole new technology success, I believe.
So we have not even explored all that is possible with the existing networks and the existing devices.
I believe we have explored only 5%.
Wow.
If we explore another 5%, we will be like super in terms of utilization of the technology.
Yeah, we should take these numbers very seriously, coming from very, very experienced hands. Yeah, Prashant, you of course are a fiber player, but clearly your business is integrally linked. Now tell us what you would suggest. What is in your wish list?
Definitely. LTE is one of the architecture which is India, one of the biggest operator which is laying, is one of the best in the world. If that happens, the way he's rolling out for 4 years after the spectrum, spending $1 billion on the spectrum, spending $1 billion on network, nothing to take away from the other telcos. Yeah. But that operator, if he comes in a big way in next 6 to 7 months, he's going to change the entire scenario of people changing from 3G to 4G. You know whom I'm talking. I'm not to take the name right now. But definitely that will change. But for that, you don't have to quote this, policies and the regulations in the countries has to change. This 4 lakh kilometers of network which government is laying, if they allow private telcos also to lay along with it, definitely that will change a lot. So few of the regulations for building this network, government help, definitely the ROI, the ARPUs will definitely count on it. Definitely the 4G is going to come, will come, it will be great.
Yeah. So augmenting of the 4G wireless network with fiber is a very key element of the whole 4G rollout itself. And thank you, Prashant, for a minute. And Niladri, maybe I can come to you last now. And again, the same question. In the light of your experience elsewhere, what is it that others have done which you think India could do to actually get the best value for the 4G, get the best value out of 4G technology?
I think the simple answer to that is between the customer and a product is the personalization. So I think the countries which have successfully deployed 4G and the way they have deployed it is purely based on personalization and quality of service. These are the two fundamental parameters. Mm-hmm. Just a closing thought here, because we are coming to the end of the discussion. I just wanted to say that technology must become a commodity in order to be successful. So any service, whether it's a technology service or a non-technology service, if you see any businesses of the world that is fast changing, it has to be commoditized. And in order to get technology, in order to become a commodity, it has to be personalized. And it has to have the means and the mechanisms to get it at that level.
Yeah, great, thank you. Now, well, I think this is a good time to open the discussion to all of you, and please feel free to ask a question, raise your hand, identify yourself, and maybe if you have somebody in mind to ask that question, please address that question to them. There. Here. Okay, sorry, yeah, sure.
Hello, sir. My question is to Mr. Prashant from Sterlite. As we talk about 4G, we talk about different aspects. We touch on every aspects what we can touch. My question is specific to fiber. Like you said, we roll out 11 lakh kilometers approx in almost 5 or 10 or last decade. And if you want to roll out 4G, the same has to be done in 1 year or so. But do you really feel that 4G rollout or 3G rollout or 2G rollout, what was done and has to be done, really depend on the fiber. Because what I feel, what I understand so far in studying that, fiber is unlimited capacity. Fiber has unlimited capacity. The capacity of fiber, what we say, like it can carry a capacity of 10 gig or whatever, it depends on the end equipments, what I learned so far. So do you really feel that fiber plays an important role in 4G rollout? Good. If we talk about capacity, it's definitely it will do. But what my perspective is, I don't feel that 2G, 3G or 4G rollout, we can say that fiber is fiber has different.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because that is very integral to this discussion. So Prashant is
a good question.
And if there's anything else you want to add, yeah, sure.
If you see the capacity, what we talk in the 4G is the speed and the content and the data transfer. Definitely fiber, if you have studied, fiber is the best means of transferring the data, the bandwidth, the higher speeds. The 4G with the speeds we are talking of 20 or 100 Mbps, definitely fiber is the only mean. Microwave, definitely if you have towers today, if you see in a 2G or 3G, the tower connectivity in India is a single digit, still a 7 to 8% as compared to other countries, the BT or UK, if you see, they are almost at a 70, 75%. Therefore, they get that speed and they get that data. In India, we are not able to. You still, that annoying buffering still happening on your phones. So if you don't want that, definitely fiber is the only mean to give you that speed for higher data and higher content.
Can I just add to what you said?
Excuse me. Okay. 1 minute. My question is, we are not only relying on fiber. We are agree that fiber is necessary for high speed and all.
See what?
But my question is, why we are saying that 4G fiber rollout is important? Fiber rollout is already important. Like you said,
the LTE network worldwide. You want to?
Yeah, please. Sorry. See, your answer to your question is very simple. What Prashant meant was physical connectivity. Suppose there is an E node B, you're supposed to backhaul it on something. E node B is radiating, and you're connecting to E node B. What backhauls it? Yes, if you talk about capacity, a single fiber can carry 10 gigs of traffic. You're right. But you need physical connectivity of E node B taking it to the EPC. That is the physical medium which he's referring to. The physical connectivity which can either happen on the microwave, it can happen on the fiber. That's the connectivity he's talking about. So the 11 lakh square kilometers of fiber, it is reaching how many places? Still, maybe I'm not too sure, but maybe your campus does not have fiber. So even if there is 11 lakh square kilometers of fiber which can carry multiple gigs of traffic, your institute cannot be connected on fiber. He's talking about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to add on to your point, you're right in a way when you ask the question about, yes, we have the bandwidth already in place. Now, my fellow panelists spoke about the core network, which is absolutely the backbone, but you need to also focus on the access and the backhaul, and he already spoke about backhaul. I think you are asking more on the access side in terms of the consumer experience, the user experience, the simplicity of user experience, so to say the quality of service as we speak about. That's the access side, that's the last mile connectivity, and the service delivery platforms that are there already in place today in order to deliver these kind of services. Are they ready? The answer is not quite yet. Even in developed countries where 4G is a reality, they are not quite yet. We are still growing there. That's why when I opened up the discussion, I said the biggest challenge is integrating the process and the technology layer and seamlessly delivering it across channels.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to ask a question, just want to share a thought. What I believe, the acceptance or the success of 4G or whatever the 3G technology also, what I have self-experienced or belief is, it is the awareness of the technology in the masses. The acceptance of the masses would only going to happen, well, we are in a good SITM forum, so everybody knows what is 3G and 4G, but if you travel in a local train, and ask people, I believe 90% of the people don't understand what is 3G and 4G and what they can do with 3G and 4G. The applications and the content which is developed are there in some pockets, like the example of, in the last panel discussion, we have discussed about a goat, putting a SIM card in a goat and can find out some, and there are some fisheries applications also, there are some local rural applications we have heard about. There are some startups who got a good award and then they have finished. I don't know what they're doing up now. I believe there are hundreds of the startups which have done some application innovations. They have done something good, but what happened? Means it's about the awareness in the mass medium. 60% of our population lives in the villages. I believe equipment providers are all ready with the 4G. We all talking about what we are ready with. We are not ever talked about what the mass media has been ready with. What they want. So that's what one of my...
That's why personalization is important. And when I say technology should become a commodity, is based on that fact that it has to reach the masses.
Yeah, good point. And in fact, I'm hoping, Nirav, you will comment on this a bit more. Do you think operators are doing enough to familiarize people with the technology and its power? But one line only.
I think the telecom operators are doing much more than required to create awareness, okay? But it all depends upon awareness at the right time and at the right place. Okay. So the time and the place is very important.
Okay, fair enough.
Good evening, sir. Sir, myself Shad Mehman, and I am having one question, sir. While we are discussing about 3G and 4G technology, and we are having HSDPA, high-speed data packet access, and various kinds of technology for the transmission of data. Last 6 to 7 months back, I heard about a technology that some organization has came about the idea of using Outernet. Means they are planning to use a satellite communication around the Earth so that we can directly get the packet data from satellite. So is that possible to that it can be alternative to 3G, 4G? And can it be replace our everything that we are having technology right now?
It's a very good question, and
you,
I know many people who think that who regard satellite as a very key element of broadband growth, particularly in rural areas. But the satellite expert is next to me. Yes.
Now, there are several issues with the satellite communication. Though the benefits are many, it's much reliable network, but it's quite delay kind of thing. One hop of satellite will add several hundred milliseconds to the delay. So for quite many applications, the satellite network cannot be compared directly with the 4G. Then other side of it, the 4G and the satellite network may not be that different. They are complementing each other. So there has to be like very hybrid network where optical fiber some place, the satellite links other place. So those are complementary technologies, not the competitive technologies. So I think that may be the way to think of, I believe.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any more? Tired.
Everybody's tired, I guess.
Long day.
Thank you, dear panelists, for such an enlightening session. Okay.
Yeah, that's the last question.
Good evening, sir. My name is Ashdeep Bhanot. I do not have very technical acumen regarding 3G and what I feel bothers most of us is that in India, as of now, even 3G is not at a very high level. Even 3G is not being utilized completely to its full potential. So do you all think that 4G as of now is feasible? And why is technology progressing at a blindfolded rate? In a country like India, I don't think 4G as of now is even required in most of the areas. So is it feasible to spend so much on 4G instead of developing 3G to its full potential first?
Yeah, maybe I'll ask Anish to answer this question, having targeted Nirav a bit more than he should have.
Have you ever downloaded a movie?
Yes, sir.
On what?
So broadband basically.
Yeah. Broadband, yeah. DSL.
Yes, sir.
Have you tried using GPON to download a movie?
No, sir.
Try using it. What happens here is now you're downloading something in a couple of hours. With GPON, you may do it in 5 minutes. Something similar is going to happen with 3G and 4G. See, it's not evolution. We are not talking about evolution of network. It is not that 2G, then 3G, then 4G, then 5G. It is about if I can offer my customers certain service or a certain bandwidth now on 4G, why should I go on 3G at all? Why did BT choose to go for 4G directly? They had an extensive fiber network. They thought they could deliver higher speeds for the last mile radiating on 4G. So it is just that, yes, you're right, we've not developed 3G that much, but does that mean we should not go into 4G? We should not give our users something more than that? Why should I invest on 3G if I know 4G is available and I can offer better data rates, better QoS, better services to my subscribers? I should go for it. What stops me from doing that?
Thank you.
Absolutely. And remember also that there is, and this is probably a general point, I won't dwell on it, but there is going to be a constant lag between how the time you deploy a technology and when it actually comes in full bloom. For instance, even our mobile telephony, some of the most important policymakers, some of the most forward-thinking policymakers of this country, as recently as 1994, 95, were arguing strongly against mobile telephony in India. They were arguing that this was going to be a rich man's toy, this is absolutely of no use to people, etc. It costs so much money. But that is the nature of wireless technologies. Not only have their power increased, not only has the rollout increased, the prices have crashed, everything now. In fact, even the lowest of low-income people seem to be finding it impossible to live without their mobile phones. So I think to a large extent we will see that what seems such an implausible or such a distant dream very soon will pose us a very different problem, whether we have enough capacity, the point that somebody else made here about the Internet of Things. Right now, if you're going to have an exponential increase in the number of connected devices, then suddenly you'll be stuck. You'll have no capacity to carry it. So, anyway, that's the answer.
I'll just add to this.
Please, Nirav, yeah.
The way the change, the change always happens. Before 2000, what changes used to happen within 5 years? Similar changes are happening within a year time. I hope everybody believes in this, post 2000. Well, you rightly asked question whether 4G would be viable, not viable. When the launch of 3G was done, 2G was already existing and was doing fine, but 3G was launched and 3G was not successful in India. But you see now, within a year's time, within 1.5 years' time, people are using 3G. Because you moved from Blackberries to SMSs, you have moved to WhatsApp. Right? Most of you moved to WhatsApp. And from WhatsApp, you'll have started voice notes and you'll have started sharing videos. There is a time where telcos and a lot of industry know that what are you going to move to. And today, the way the changes are happening, telco or industrialists or companies cannot think or cannot think and have a stop that whether it's not required, not required. Any technology which is possible to serve the Indian large consumer, actually needs to without even thinking needs to be go ahead. Definitely, there is no doubt about it.
And one other data point in the 3G scenario, 3G spectrum is already short. One of the largest demands for spectrum is coming from 3G. In fact, the biggest pressure on government today is to release 3G spectrum. In fact, the operators are willing to take it even partially. They're actually telling the government, okay, if you can't give it in the whole circle, just give it where it is available. That is the kind of demand. So clearly, there is a mismatch between how much 3G is in use and what we perceive is the usage of 3G and what the actual need is. Anyway, yeah, we will now wrap up. Thank you very much, friends.
Thank you.
And I don't think you need me or anybody else to summarize these discussions. All our panelists have made their points. We have seen the issue about supply side, about networks. We've talked about the issues relating to fiber. We've seen the business about the customizing of services, making customers aware, etc., etc. The user end, the technology end. We've seen from international experience what kind of concerns are taking people back to 4G, and what are the kind of experiences of in use of 4G in other countries. So clearly there is a lot that we have learned from our panelists, and allow me through you to thank each one of them. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, dear panelists, for such an enlightening session. I now invite my colleagues to felicitate our esteemed dignitaries with mementos as a gesture of our appreciation. We thank our panel members for joining us and would now request them to kindly take their seats amongst the audience.
The winner of Twitter contest is Shamik Trivedi and Sachin Bhakar. May I request them to please come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we come to the end of an eventful day 1 of Communique 14, 4th International Telecom Seminar.